Welcome into Other People's Shoes, the podcast where listeners get to step into the lives of others and see the world through their shoes. Your host, Neil Matthews, is a seasoned interviewer who has a natural talent for empathizing with his guests and drawing out their unique perspectives. Through a combination of storytelling and insightful questioning, Other People's Shoes explores the lives of a diverse range of guests, from everyday people to celebrities and thought leaders. With a warm and welcoming style, Neil creates a safe and supportive space for his guests to share their stories, while also challenging listeners to broaden their perspective and think more deeply about the world around them. So tune in to Other People's Shoes with Neil Matthews and get ready to step into other people's shoes.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome in to Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Today's the day. 6 long years have finally happened. Welcome into the birthday edition of Other People's Shoes. We will have a countdown coming up soon. We will count down 10 of my favorite episodes. Now, a little bit of background. Somehow, some way, in the chaos of last year between moving and building our new house and getting the shoe shack set up and all the things that happened last birthday for Other People's Shoes, I'm not saying I forgot the show's birthday, but we didn't have the fanfare affair that we're having this year. I want to apologize to Other People's Shoes for not honoring year 5. It happened. We did have it. In fact, on year 5, I did my very first recording in the Shoe Shack studios. I did forget to have the countdown last year. In light of that, I went from year 4 all the way to year 6. So we have like 2 years worth of shows that I narrowed down to 10. That was a lot of shows to narrow down, by the way. We narrowed it down to 10, and we will have a forthcoming countdown. We do have some thank yous to share with you. Some of my friends will stop by as well to share their birthday greetings, past guests, family members. Maybe in light of the presidential inauguration that happened just a couple of weeks back, I thought I would give you State of the Show address. So I want you to think about this for a second. If you can, whatever you're doing, maybe you're driving, maybe you're running, maybe you're folding clothes, whatever you find yourself doing, try, if you can, think about something right now that you've done once a week, every single week for the last 6 years. Something that requires not just your time, but your heart, your energy, your creativity. Something that you're proud of and that you've poured yourself into time and time again, knowing that each moment it's its own creation. For me, it's pretty obvious. That has been my podcast, Other People's Shoes. Week after week, I've shown up. I've sat behind this microphone that I currently sit behind. I've given you a piece of my soul, tried to engage in the craft of creating something new every single week. We have never had a repeat show. I want you to have a brand new show, shiny, shimmery show every Wednesday. And I've set out to do that, to spark conversations, to share people's stories, to build these connections that I love to do so much. It's been slow. It's been steady, this journey for me. One that shaped me over the years that I couldn't even imagine how much it shaped me. When I first hit record all those years ago, I had no idea where this journey would take me. I knew I wanted to create something that mattered, something that would give a voice to the stories we often overlook, the stories of ordinary people with extraordinary experiences. Along the way, I've had the privilege of sitting across from individuals whose stories might have otherwise remained untold, as well as some famous people in some people's minds. And in every conversation, I have found something profound. I've laughed so hard my cheeks hurt. I've wept over the tales of heartbreak and redemption and marveled at the resilience of the human spirit. I've been left in awe of how much strength lies hidden in the hearts of the people. My podcast has been my front row seat to the intricacies of an ever unfolding tapestry of humanity. Some of the most meaningful moments have come from those closest to me, the ones I've shared my life with over the years. Conversations with my dad, whose wisdom is a steady compass in my life. I've sat with my mom, Marilyn, whose love always is my anchor. I've sat with my two sisters, and their laughter and their perspective brightens my world. I've even sat with my wife, my soulmate, who has stood by me and listens faithfully every week, supporting me with her insight, her humor, her takeaways, and of course, ways that I can get better. These voices and moments I hold the most dear to me, knowing they live on my podcast forever for years to come. I want to thank a couple of people right now. The first one I want to thank, besides my family and those that I've already mentioned, I want to thank Garrett. For those of you who don't know, Garrett really started out just as a listener. We worked together at a place called Lithia. It's a Fortune 500 company here in Oregon. They have dealerships across the nation. Garrett and I were coworkers. I told him that I was doing this podcast, and so he listened. About my second season in, I had a series called You Lost Me. And Garrett noticed that my show notes looked exactly the same every single week. And he asked me if I'd go to lunch with him. And I said, sure. And so we went to lunch at this little Mexican restaurant down the street from our office. And Garrett sat across the table from me and proceeded to tell me ways that he thought he could get involved in the show. He started writing show notes. Soon he got so good at that, I promoted him, if you will, to executive producer.
Happy birthday, Other People's Shoes, and congratulations, Neil, to 6 years of running the podcast. That's so much longer than other people get with their shows. Congratulations on sticking with it, from having amazing guests, from building those connections. I love what you've done with this show. I'm so excited to see what you're going to do with it going on forward. Here's to another 6 years.
And Garrett would often sit with me in the early days during interviews and pass me questions or ask me, hey, what about? And it would help jog in my mind to ask maybe a follow-up question or a deeper question. So Garrett, I want you to know you've given Other People's Shoes a level of care and thoughtfulness that has made it something special. The tradition of you joining me every Christmas episode is something I cherish. It's like a beautiful ornament on the tree. My Christmas isn't complete unless I'm doing a Christmas episode with you. In my mind, every podcast needs a Garrett. Someone who pushes you, someone who supports you, someone who challenges you. Garrett, you're truly a gift, and I am endlessly grateful for you and what you have given to this show. In the journey, as I've already mentioned, my family has been there along the way, supporting me, encouraging me, sharing words of affirmation, which is my number one love language. In fact, here's one right now. It's from my mother-in-law, Christine. She was actually a guest on a past episode. She opened up our search series.
6 years. Happy birthday. You have grown by leaps and bounds. Amazing content, amazing show. I love it. Happy birthday, Other People's Shoes. And Neil Matthews, I'm proud of you. Good job.
Isn't that nice? The last 6 years, I've actually, through contacts, through the show, I've actually met two amazing ladies, and I want to thank them so much. First one is Jessica Lewis. You might have recognized her voice. And by the way, that's not an AI voice. At the beginning of today's episode, Jessica does a lot of my voice work. She does an exceptional job. So if you're looking for someone that does voice work, that's who I use, Jessica Lewis. The last couple of seasons, actually, Allie Murphy, she's actually a famous actress. She'd love it if I said that. She has done our more European sound of a voice that we've used. Allie Murphy's actually going to be voicing a season that will be coming out in December. She did our Take Flight series. So I want to thank those two ladies right now. I also want to thank three people who I affectionately call Snadge. So right now it's really just only S-A-J, because the N is me, so we're missing a letter. I want to thank my friend Sean McCoy, and here's Sean with his birthday greeting.
Happy 6th birthday to my buddy, my brother from another mother, Neil Matthews, and his show, Other People's Shoes. 6 years. Man, so many people don't even get off the ground, let alone work hard, diligently, over and over, committed to the craft and the message of a show like this. Outstanding job, buddy. So happy for you. So grateful for this show. What it means to me is that there are people out there who care, who are empathetic, who recognize the need to understand others that are different than us. Because our instinct isn't to always do that. Typically, our instinct is to reject it. And so it's an awesome reminder of the value that we can get in the wonderful world we can find by taking a moment to care about other people and what they do and how they do it and why. As far as empathy in my life, as many of you may remember from some of my past episodes on this show, I have dove headfirst into that world and I'm working on my master's degree in psychotherapy, which at its core requires you, and they tell you this all the time, empathy. More than anything else is what matters. And so a show like this, it shows how valuable that is as well. Just goes to reinforce that wonderful emotion and why it's so important. Neil, congratulations, my friend. Regardless of anything else, you have done your part and continue to do so to try to make this world a better place and to show love and grace to your fellow man and woman.
Sean has been a great source of wisdom. I call it quiet wisdom. It's a thing, trust me. And these two ladies who I just adore, I view them in a sisterly light. Adria Wilkins and Jody Howell are just amazing ladies. They have been my friends throughout this process. I've actually met both of them in person. Sean is still on my list to meet. Still 6 years in, never met Sean McCoy. So I do find that a little bit humorous. Adria first and then Jody.
Happy 6th birthday to Other People's Shoes from Adria Wilkins, a fellow podcaster for Look Out for Joy. I love this podcast of Other People's Shoes because it gives us a glimpse into what it's like to be in other people's shoes for just a bit. Neil does a fabulous job as the podcaster. He makes it fun and easy to be a guest. He is my inspiration because he has never missed a week. I aspire to be like podcaster Neil. That kind of sounds like royalty. Podcaster Neil? I had the privilege of visiting his studio last year in Oregon. I sat in his chair and I got a bird's eye perspective into Neil's world. Neil, you and Other People's Shoes need to go and have some cake, and don't forget to be on the lookout for joy.
This is Jody Howe. Hey, Other People's Shoes. I'm just so happy that you're having a birthday, a big one. You know what I love most about Other People's Shoes and the team that produces this incredible podcast is not only are they the coolest of guys with such integrity, they have this incredible tenacity. They never stop. They never give up. They always hit their deadline, and they're always putting out good information, guests, and words that we need to live by, because you really don't know what it's like to walk in certain people's shoes. And until you get that understanding, you're really going to be misguided. I'm just grateful that I've been a guest a few times. It's always been an honor. My friend Neil Matthews has not only brought me on to help promote my podcast, kind of had some really great conversations about life and growth, but he helped me promote my book, which is called The Air That I Breathe, and it's available on Amazon. He's just always been a real true brother in Christ. I'm just so grateful to know him. So happy birthday. I'm glad he didn't ask me to sing. And you know what? Keep having awesome birthdays. I know the team at Other People's Shoes, and they won't stop until they absolutely have to, and keep sharing those awesome messages. Thank you guys, and I wish you well. Happy birthday. Balloons, all kinds of confetti is coming down right now. Love y'all.
Recently, someone asked me, why do you keep going? I thought, well, that's a fair question. One that I've asked myself on more than one occasion. Podcasting isn't glamorous. It's not easy. And it's certainly not lucrative, at least not for me. So why do I keep going? Why do I keep showing up week after week, year after year? To answer that, I have to go back in time a little bit before Other People's Shoes. See, for me, running was an escape. I would get up early in the morning. I'd lace up my Asics. I'd step out the door. I'd hit the road. And there was something freeing about the rhythm of my feet against the pavement. The world was still quiet. It was just me and the open road. It wasn't always safe. I would run against traffic so cars could see me. It was my time to think. It was my time to pray. It was my time to process this world. Often on my runs, I would run uphill. In fact, I have a route that I affectionately called 1134. So if you flip that upside down, you can kind of get an idea of what that route was like. There were times I would want to stop on these hills. There were times I wanted to give up and quit. But I made a deal with myself that no matter how steep, no matter how tired I was, no matter how hard it was, I wasn't going to walk. I was going to keep running. Why did I run? I would often ask myself. I think the answer to that was I wanted recognition. I ran races for medals, to be seen, to fill maybe an emptiness that was inside of me, that I wanted to prove that I was worthy of something, that I'd put in the work. I actually have a collection of medals and ribbons that are on display here in the shoe shack. It's a little shrine to my victories. But over time, that thrill faded. The recognition didn't fill the deeper longing in my heart. Podcasting in many ways mirrors those days of running. I've heard many people start a podcast hoping to become famous, to gain followers. In 6 years, podcasting hasn't become my full-time job like I thought it would. I haven't won any awards. My name hasn't been thrust into the limelight. Podcasting reminds me a lot of that famous fable, The Tortoise and the Hare. The tortoise kept going, slow and steady, week after week. He kept going. He didn't do it for the applause because there weren't any. He didn't do it for another person. There was a deep calling in his heart to keep moving forward. I think that's what podcasting has taught me. The true meaning of perseverance. It's not about the accolades. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the recognition. It's about the connections, the stories shared, the lives touched, the moments when the guest says to me, I've never told anyone this before, or when a listener reaches out through social media or through our website that says, man, that episode changed my perspective. I've learned that progress doesn't always come quickly. Like the tortoise, I've embraced the slow, steady pace. It's not the quickest route. In each step forward, there's a victory. Each conversation, each story is a gift. As I prepare for another year of 52 episodes, I'm reminded of why I keep going. The tortoise doesn't need, again, that cheering crowd to keep moving forward. He's driven by something deeper that keeps moving him forward, even when the finish line seems so far away. And so am I. I'm not stopping. This isn't my farewell address. This isn't my swan song episode. I have a direction of where we're going to go in May and in September. Those are our 2 final seasons of this year. And then we'll start, ready? 2026. But I just want to say to everyone who's listened, everyone who's shared, everyone who's cheered me on, thank you. Your support is the wind in my sail that keeps me moving. To my guests, thank you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for sharing your story with me and trusting me with your story. I don't take that for granted. And to my new guests, to my new friends that I will meet this next year, I'm looking forward to meeting you. Looking forward to sharing your story. And I want to thank you in advance for allowing me into your heart. I want to thank you for allowing me to hear your story and to amplify what you've gone through and what you've experienced. So, other people's shoes, happy birthday. Here is to another year of walking in other people's shoes, slow and steady, one story at a time, one pair of shoes at a time. Now, always gets a little emotional thinking back over the progress and over the journey. A good friend of mine who was in season 1, his name's Rob. You can go back and listen to season 1 episode. It's called Pornography Part 1. Rob is on that episode and he shares his story of pornography. Been a very good friend of mine. Rob said to me when I told him the show was turning 6, he said, wow, that's longer than you've worked any real job, Neil. Are you aware of that? I thought that was kind of mean, Rob. He's not wrong. I said that to somebody recently and they said, that's not bad. You just haven't found that one job that makes you come alive. I said, yeah, that's it. Before we get to the countdown, another birthday greeting from my first real true mentor in podcasting. I call him the Podfather or Pod Papa, whichever name you want to call him. He'll probably answer to both. He is Eric Nevins. You've probably heard me mention him a few times. He's even been a guest. He has an amazing show called Halfway There.
Hey Neil, it's Eric Nevins of Christian Podcasters Association, and my show is Halfway There. I wanted to say to you, congratulations on 6 years of podcasting with other people's shoes. Not everybody can do that. Very few do. Put you in elite company. Congratulations. You deserve every accolade and every kind message that you're getting today. I wanted to just say one thing about you that I think is really, truly impressive. Keep in mind, I look at a lot of podcasts every single week. I'm seeing them come across my feed in Christian Podcasters Association. I'm listening to them. I'm helping coach podcasters. Very few people do it. In fact, I don't think I've seen anyone do it as well as you do. You have one central theme, other people's shoes. What's it like to get into other people's shoes and help others understand one another with a lens of empathy, which I absolutely love. It's a great message. I told you this personally. You take a different take on each season. Each one is just a little bit of a twist. It's enough different to make me go, oh, that's interesting. It's still the same idea and the same theme. You do it masterfully, brother. You're a great host. Congratulations. I'm really grateful for all that you're contributing to the world with other people's shoes. We need your voice. Thank you so much for just saying, hey, yeah, I'm going to go for it. You've done some great work. Congratulations, Neil, from all your friends at Christian Podcasters Association. Here's to the next 6.
Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate all that you shared. Really appreciate the encouragement. Eric even wrote back when there was a thing called Podcast Magazine that came out in 2020. In their December issue, he actually wrote a little piece voice on Other People's Shoes. We've been published. We just never won any awards yet. So let's get into our countdown. Start with number 10, and you might recognize the voice. She recently, as of even last week, was on our show, and her name is Amber. I loved Amber's story so much. She had to make our top 10, and the reason why is Amber helped fill out our fictitious bingo card. Amber is a 5th generation Jehovah's Witness who has chosen to walk away. And she starts our countdown off at number 10.
It's an excellent saying. It is better to have questions that you can't answer than answers you can't question. My husband has asked so many questions, and he has asked the questioning things, because when you can't answer it, it starts to pull at your belief system, and it makes you mad, and it makes you upset, and it makes you uncomfortable. And that's the cognitive dissonance. When your belief system is challenged, you either pull at the thread or you just accept whatever makes it fit again. And in the JW religion, what makes it fit is new light.
Fantastic episode. Now, again, Amber is in our current season. If you're wondering about her episode, you can go listen to it in its entirety. Just go back 1 week. She is in season 19, episode 4. So a little break from our countdown for just a moment. I actually met this guy through another show called Bleeding Daylight, and it's done by a good friend of mine named Rodney, and Rodney is from Australia.
A world of podcasts that have been cast aside, never having made it past a handful of episodes, Other People's Shoes has continued to provide a safe place to explore people's stories. I'm Rodney Olson from the podcast Bleeding Daylight, and I want to wish Other People's Shoes an amazing 6th birthday. Neil, well done on your perseverance to keep going for 6 years. Congratulations. You have consistently made a space for people to share their thoughts and their hearts, and you do that in a way that very few can. Empathy has been described as the ability to see things from another's perspective and feel their emotions. It's literally about putting yourself in another person's shoes. That's what this podcast does so very well. We might not agree with everything someone else says. With empathy, we can understand more of their journey. We can get to know them better. We can know the person beyond their opinions and beliefs. In a world that tends to dismiss anyone and anything that doesn't line up with our own worldview, walking a mile in other people's shoes allows us to understand, to question our reasoning, and it makes us more human. Other People's Shoes goes beyond simply being an echo chamber of rigid thinking. It invites us to think and to explore. And even if we still arrive at the same destination, we are richer for the journey. Neil, I'm sure that most people will never grasp the time, planning, effort, thought, and work that goes into producing every single episode of Other People's Shoes. But some of us know. And be assured that God sees both the effort and the heart behind it. Well done, and congratulations. I hope that 6 years from now, we'll still have the opportunity to walk in other people's shoes.
I wanted to interview somebody that had the same name as me. I just thought that would be a fun dynamic, and the same spelling. And again, fun dynamic, maybe a little confusing. And lo and behold, I found this guy through Bleeding Daylight, Rodney Olson, and his name is Neil Getzlow. It is our number 9 episode, and it's called Finally Unmasked, season 14, episode 12. So you can go check that out in its entirety.
Neil, let me just say how awesome it is for you to be celebrating your birthday for Other People's Shoes. 6 years. That's awesome. The fact that my story and the story of my wife, Amy, we make up 2 of those episodes. It's been a complete blessing and honor for us to be able to share our stories with your audience. It's such, what you do is so important because it is critical that we put ourselves in other people's shoes to understand what they're facing. And I will say, even listening to my wife's conversation with you on your show, that helped reveal some new things to me about what she was going through during our struggles. So awesome to see how your show continues to grow. Happy anniversary, 6 strong years, and hopefully we get a chance to connect on a podcast somewhere in the universe sometime down the road.
9. Part of my adult life, paying women for sex, finding them online, led me to a hotel room in Chicago in February of 2020. I was on a business trip, met a woman I had met online, paid her for coming to her hotel room. As I was leaving the hotel room, the bedroom door opens up. The second bedroom door in that room opens up, and out comes a rather large gentleman dressed in drag. Looks like a offensive lineman from the Chicago Bears. In his hand, he held up his phone, which had my wife's contact information on there. And he said, "You're going to have to pay us more money or we're going to call your wife." Now, I'd been doing this quite a while, and I've put myself in situations, looking back now, like I'm surprised nothing sinister has happened to me sooner.
Now it's time for another birthday greeting. This comes to us from a good friend of mine named James Early. James has an amazing podcast called The Bible Speaks to You podcast. James was also a past guest. He was in season 15, episode 15, so 1515.
Hey, Neil, this is James Early with the Bible Speaks to You podcast, and I just want to wish you a happy day because you have reached the big 6-year mark with your podcast, Other People's Shoes. That is quite a milestone, and I wish you many more years of success with that. Every time I listen to your show, I am inspired. I feel like I get to know things from a different perspective. I appreciate people that I didn't know anything about, and I just love it. I loved being on your show, and I loved having you on my show. I think the cool thing about your show, Neil, is that it's not just that you're getting in other people's shoes, you're getting in other people's heart, and it's just such a beautiful thing. You have taught me to really appreciate people from where they're coming and who they are instead of trying to make them fit into my perspective, my world, my view of things. And that is doing such a wonderful thing to bring healing to the world. Again, congratulations for reaching the big 6-year mark, and I hope you have many more successful years as podcasting. You are just doing a great job, and I'm so proud of you. All the best.
Thank you, James, for that. Speaking of season 15, our number 8 episode comes to us from Wendy Wallace, and the title of the episode is Fixing My Want To.
For the audience, I experienced flesh-eating bacteria 12 years ago, which resulted in a coma for 3 weeks, the hospital stay, multiple surgeries. And then when I came home 12 years ago, I was missing my hands and feet. And I was in a wheelchair. And I was like, this is not the end. This is not where I choose to stay. Even before I left the hospital, I was making plans for prosthetics to get up and get back to life.
Absolutely phenomenal woman. Love what Wendy shared. Love her story. Horrific thing happened to her, just awful. And yet she has not allowed what happened to her to slow her down in any way. Probably the most awkward moment in that interview was as I asked Wendy what style of shoe does she like to wear, and she said, well, I don't have any feet. And I was like, very awkward for me. I think we might have had to fire somebody from research because that somehow got missed. I don't know how, but it got missed. Speaking of people doing great jobs, one thing I don't do a great job with is grace. I am awful sometimes at giving grace and even receiving grace. And my friend Jennifer Sakata from Living the Grace Life podcast is here. She was a past guest. She is here to remind us all what it's like to have grace and why it's important.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Other People's Shoes is 6 years old. Happy birthday, Neil Matthews and your team. You're officially a first grader. How fun is that? Neil, your show is life-altering for those who listen. Personally, I wish I'd come across your show much sooner than I did. Now that I have, I am deeply grateful. It's a show that I make time regularly to listen to. I not only come away with a different perspective by walking in other people's shoes and hearing their stories, but I feel more equipped to walk in my own shoes and the story that God is writing through my walk. So I'm thrilled for your show and everything that you've been able to do all these years. I think back to our Living the Grace Life episode and how we had recorded it, I think in July, but it didn't drop until maybe late November. And what I'm still stunned by today is how much I needed the content of that conversation, fast forward many months later. I had no idea that the depth of the conversation, because of the questions that you asked and the space that you created for me to be able to enter that with you, I had no idea how much I was going to need that Living the Grace Life message all those months later. You are a master, Neil, at asking great questions and creating welcoming space for people to enter another person's shoes. A job well done, friend. So excited for you, for the podcasting world, and for your future listeners who also will learn to walk in other people's shoes. Happy birthday.
That is a great reminder of why we need grace. Now, speaking of things that need grace, or maybe people that need grace, coming in on our countdown at number 7 is a show I was a little bit apprehensive in taking, and it took place in season 14, episode 3. I entitled the episode Agree to Disagree, and it's with this gentleman by the name of Brian Netzel. And Brian openly said to me when we started interacting that he was homosexual and he was a Christian. And to me, those two pieces don't go together. Coming in at number 7, Agree to Disagree.
7. And then in my mid to late 30s, I met a dude, fell in love, and I really hadn't planned on that at all. You can sit down across the proverbial table with God, a 36-year-old, a little differently than you could when you were 16. And I was just like, you know what, God, like, you see my life, you see my heart. You know, I want to do the right thing. I don't want a shortcut. But man, what am I supposed to do? And that became a couple of year wrestling match with God, kind of like Jacob. Big old wrestling match with God for a couple of years. At the end of that 2-year wrestling match with God, I came to a point where I didn't necessarily have a new interpretation of 6 verses. I just felt God released me to say, you know what? You don't have to spend the rest of your life trying to fix your sexuality, staring at your navel. Just trust me. I got you. Didn't give me like permission to go get married yet or anything, but it gave me permission to quit thinking that the best way to honor God was to keep trying to fix my sexuality. And it was just a huge relief.
The reason why I chose this episode specifically, feel like for the first time in quite a while, I really had to see if that perspective is something that would fit me. And maybe a little bit of what Jennifer just talked about. Is there grace enough for Brian? That's a struggle, and that's a trouble. What do you do with that? I want to introduce a young lady that I actually found through Amazon. Now, little background, little context. I often search other people's shoes in different places. And for whatever reason, one day I searched on Amazon other people's shoes. And lo and behold, her book came right forward in my search history. And by the way, I have to date not been able to duplicate how I found Judy Merriam's book, Empty Shoes by the Front Door. I don't know how the algorithm, I don't know how the search parameters sent me to her book on Amazon, Empty Shoes by the Front Door, but it did. And I had a wonderful conversation with Judy. She was in season 15, episode 6.
This is Judy Merriam, and I am calling Neil Matthews to wish his podcast, Other People's Shoes, a happy 6th year birthday. I just think Neil's the greatest, and I so appreciate that Neil does his podcast and interviews so many people. I was on his show a year ago. I have a child who took their life. Neil had me on his show after he found my book online. I spent so much time chatting with Neil and so enjoyed talking to him. Neil is a great, fine young man who is working so hard to share people's stories, to encourage others in the body of Christ. He's telling the truth that many people are afraid to express, and I appreciate that about Neil. Neil is a man of empathy. Neil is a man of grace. Those are 2 of my words, especially grace. We can't have empathy without the grace of God, and Neil certainly is a man who so shows grace in his life to other people, to the hurting in the world. I am so honored that I have the ability to be a part of Neil's legacy with his podcast, and I look forward to many years going forth for Neil to continue sharing the wonderful truth that he shares on his podcast. So happy birthday to Other People's Shoes, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, so much for your kind words. I truly appreciate you so much. And if you want to pick up her book, as I said, it's available on Amazon right now, called Empty Shoes by the Front Door. I don't know if Judy knows this or not because I never told her. We had a homecoming series last Christmas. And I would ask the guests every episode, if we were to find some shoes by the front door, what shoes might we find? And to me, it was a little bit of a a nod or a little bit of a wink to Judy and how much her friendship and appreciation for the show has meant to me. It was an honor to meet her. One day maybe we'll meet face to face. But until then, all the best to Judy. Something they also don't tell you when you start podcasting is you're going to meet people that really change your world. And that's exactly what happened in our number 6 episode on our countdown. A little bit of context. The season that we're talking about is season 17. I was on the Oregon coast with my family and I was really struggling and praying and asking God what to do for the next group of seasons that I was going to be working on. And this idea came to me through a song. Brad Paisley famously wrote a song, If I Could Write a Letter to Me. And then Mercy Me wrote a song called Dear Younger Me. So between Brad Paisley and Mercy Me, I thought this would be genius to have people sit down and write a letter to somebody that for whatever reason they can't send it. Dear, ... the ellipsis, something's missing or something's coming. And through Facebook and social medias, I ended up coming across a young lady who wanted to write a letter to miscarriage moms. And we entitled the episode, Dear Miscarriage. The episode is season 17, episode 13, and it's by Kate.
6. Dear miscarriage and infant loss mama, the things you're experiencing can only be understood by someone who has walked the rocky path before you. I wish with my whole heart that I could say that I have not, but it is a part of my story as it is now a plot-twisting chapter in yours. The days ahead of you will be full of stumbling and falling. Some days you won't be able to breathe, and some days you'll wish that you weren't. But I need to tell you some things that no one told me, because I know that they will save your life and your faith when you would give up both just to have your baby in your arms. Let me first tell you the most important thing that someone did tell me. It's okay to tell God how you feel. In fact, it is necessary. Our limited wisdom as his creation cannot begin to fathom the ins and outs of what has happened and why. Your emotions will arise and try to take over, and they will spill out. But know this, he can take it. He can bear the brunt of your anger, the depths of your sadness, the questions you ask, and the loneliness that you feel. Tell him, cry to him, scream at him, yell at him, and cry some more.
Again, if you want to go listen to that episode in its entirety, I highly recommend it. It's not many episodes that make me weep, but Kate's story does. And it's just a great reminder that there is life after miscarriage. Season 17, episode 13. I just want to take a minor pause for some of you who have listened from the beginning. For some of you who know me personally, you know that I am a diehard North Carolina fan. In fact, there may be something coming soon that I get to walk in and get to kind of play in that fandom. So I reached out through this app called Cameo. Through that, you can actually get individuals to send you a greeting. So I just thought, well, what the heck? I'll just get the famous voice of the Tar Heels, Jones Angle, to give the show a birthday greeting, right? He'll do that, right? Sure, maybe.
What's up? It's Jones Angel, voice of the Tar Heels and co-host of the Carolina Insider podcast. And because of that, normally I don't shout out other podcasts because look, there's only really one that I want people to listen to, but that is not the case today. I want to give a big congratulations and happy podcast birthday to the podcast Other People's Shoes and the host Neil. Neil, man, congratulations. 6 years, more than 300 episodes. Stay on the grind. Obviously, you're out there putting out content that people love. So congratulations on the long run. Happy birthday and go Heels.
Okay, full disclosure, I did pay $40 for it, okay? But listen, it's $40 well spent. I do have to say, because it was very kind of him to do that. Thank you so much, Jones Angle. You know, because he is actually the voice that called our next guest's name. I know for a fact he must have. Somebody said to me years ago when I also started podcasting that some shows are for you, some shows are for everyone else. Well, this is definitely a show that was for me. Coming in at number 5 on our countdown is Noah Burnett's called Just Kicking It, and that's in season 18, episode 11. Noah and I walk through one of my favorite nights of all time, probably in my top 20, I would say, when I got to go to Keenan Memorial Stadium and I got to watch my beloved Tar Heels in person, and Noah kicked the game-tying field goal against Duke and then ended up helping North Carolina continue on into a double overtime game where Drake May ends up winning it. Drake May now of the New England Patriots. Again, he had to be in the countdown, and he had to be, and he's only number 5. So all the Carolina haters stop. He is coming in at number 5. Walk me through that moment. Is it more pressure because it's Duke Carolina? Is there less? Help me out with that.
I'd say the main point of pressure was the fact that it was the similar kick to the state game the year before. So just being in that position again, knowing that you don't want to miss 2 in a row in that situation, that was the main sort of just pressure point. But yeah, going out there, you get back there and you look up, you find your spot, the ball gets snapped, and sort of everything just goes silent for those split 3 seconds that you're going through the operation. And obviously that ball started a little out right, but it played the draw that is like my miss hit. So me and my holder knew it was going in. I know a lot of people didn't think it was, but it was a sigh of relief just to see it go through the uprights.
Okay. So, if we're really going to give a unique perspective, we have to give both sides of the coin a chance to talk. I met this young lady along the journey, and her name is Megan Newkirk. Megan truly became a really good friend. She helped me understand what it's like to have OCD. Her only downfall in life really is she's a North Carolina State fan. Outside of that, I would think she's probably a pretty cool person. She's awesome. She has a wonderful book called Loving Naomi. It's available on Amazon. You should go check it out because Megan's awesome.
Happy birthday, Other People's Shoes podcast. My name is Megan Newkirk, and I have been on the podcast twice. I just want to say publicly how much I appreciate Neil and the way that he takes care of his guests. He has become a good friend and almost a mentor. I can't fully put him in the mentor category because he's still a UNC fan and I'm a State fan, so we kind of are constantly ribbing each other about that. But no, in all seriousness, he has become a dear friend and mentor to me as an entrepreneur, as somebody who dreams big, as somebody who cares for others through his endeavors. And I have just been honored to be on the podcast those 2 times and would be more than happy to be on any other time. I often have joked with him that he and I would make great radio hosts together. We tend to laugh a lot. We get deep. We are always kind of rooting each other on, which is the best part of the whole thing. I'm so thankful for the show. I'm thankful for what I've learned from it. I'm thankful for the ways that he finds people who want to have a voice. It's hard sometimes in this world to have a voice. He gives people the platform to speak to the things that matter to them. And that is just, there's no greater thing. Happy birthday to the podcast. I hope it continues for a very long time. I'm already trying to think about another show idea so that I could get on there again. Anyways, happy birthday to Other People's Shoes podcast. Congrats to Neil for making it happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Go Heels. Speaking of maybe moms, because Megan is a mom, and so maybe it's a natural segue. I met this young lady through Facebook, and she just had a little disclaimer that she was kidnapped by her dad and taken to Jordan. That piqued my interest. Little did I know there is a way more faceted story to her. And I was so honored to sit with her and so honored to hear her story. Coming in at number 4 is Lauren Burns. Episode is called Taken From Home, and that happened in season 18, episode 4.
And my mom goes over and she's in disguise and she sees me sitting on the bus. And like I said earlier, there's not a lot I remember. I remember this day. My mom's looking at me through that window and she's tapping on the window and she's sort of motioning to me to come and get off the bus. I froze. All I could think of is it looks just like my mom, but how can it be? She's all the way in Texas. That can't be. I think I'm dreaming. I didn't move. So my mom gets on the bus, she pushes past JD, and she scoops me up, and she gets my backpack, and she pushes me through all the kids. As we're getting off the bus, she has to let go of my hand. Lady chaperone jumps on my mom's back, and my mom turns around, and she punches her in the nose, and there's blood coming down her face. And so now I'm really freaking out. Okay, I think that's my mom, but I just saw her punch someone in the face.
That was such a telling story to me and such a telling episode and amazing. And I just thought, what a great way to segue from one amazing young lady to another amazing young lady. And that's Kim Patton. Kim was recently on our season 19, episode 1. Kim's always wanted to be a mom. And she wrote a book about her life and just kind of what that journey's been like. being the life of the party. I just really resonated with Kim's story. Some of what she's walked through is very similar to what Elizabeth and I walked through. And Kim, little did she know, she reminded me what it felt like to be back in those days again. And to remember that not everyone is happy on the inside. On the outside, they can look a whole different way. And not that Kim was trying to lie or anything like that. But she was, I think she would echo this, she was hiding a lot of that pain. She didn't know what to do with it. Kim's a neat lady. Go check out her episode. Again, season 19, episode 1.
Happy birthday to Other People's Shoes. This is so exciting. You're not a toddler anymore. You are in kindergarten or first grade or whatever you are when you're 6. I don't remember. Congratulations, Neil, on hosting a great podcast for 6 years. This is really exciting. Most podcasts don't last past like 1 year. So you're already in the top percentage of podcasts created because you have stuck it out and have been producing great content for more than half a decade. Other People's Shoes has been an inspiration to me because anytime someone takes the time to sit down with another person and hear their story, it feels like the gospel to me. It feels like you are laying down your selfishness and listening. That's really powerful because we all have struggles and we all have things that we go through that we need to make sense of. And some of us are verbal processors and we have to talk it out in order to figure out what God is doing in our lives. Other People's Shoes is an excellent way to feature guests who are just doing their best, and everybody has a story to tell. Empathy is extremely powerful in this world because, again, we have to lay down our selfishness to attend to others. And when we hear other people's stories, first of all, we feel less alone. The person sharing their story feels less alone. And we understand where each person is coming from. When you take time to listen to what they've gone through, you're able to kind of live in their life for a minute. I think there's a lot of quotes out there about reading that says, like, people who don't read have only lived one life, but people who read have stepped into so many lives, so many adventures, so many interesting things that other people have written about, and you get to explore that through reading. I think the same thing goes with just getting to know other people and hearing other people's stories. Every time you jump into the next book or the next person's story, you get to experience what they have for a minute, and it gives you a perspective. There are so many things that I've never been through and probably never will. When I hear someone share from their heart, I can enter in to their lives, their heart, their brain, their mind, their soul, and feel their strongest feelings. Even if it's just in some small way, I think it's really powerful that we can relate to people that way. Happy birthday!
Getting back into the countdown, coming in at number 3 was an episode and still is an episode that I don't have answers on. It is so perplexing. Coming in at number 3, UFO or God with Chris Bledsoe. Season 14, episode 1. Chris details for us in the episode something happened to him.
3. And when I went to run, a third one appeared above me. Looked just like the other two, 50-foot ball of fire. And it shot down beside the other two. And the next thing I remember is the last 50 feet walking up to the fire. They didn't see me coming because it was dark and I could see a small fire burning now with 3 men standing around it. My son wasn't there. I didn't recognize it to start with, but I trotted up excited to say, you guys won't believe what I just saw.
That came in our mask series, and Chris is a great guy. If I ever get back out to North Carolina, Chris is on my list to try to go out to his property, if he'll let me, and I want to see what he's experiencing because, oh, by the way, they're still coming around. Fascinating to me. Chris is a fascinating guy, and I'm fascinated by what he does. Just fascinating. Coming in at number 2 in our countdown is an episode I did with my wife. I called it Quiz Prints because we were in a footprint series, and so these quizzes really left a mark on me, and that's the idea of a footprint. Elizabeth's episode, if you ever want to go hear what my wife sounds like and her maybe bantering with me, that's a great episode to listen to. Happened in my season finale of season 13, Elizabeth's episode. So honey, if you're listening right now, you might want to just fast forward about 45 seconds if you don't want to hear your voice. For everyone else, if you want to hear her voice and hear the rest of her episode, you can, again, season finale of season 13.
2.
Well, rescue it, like bring it home.
It doesn't need to be rescued. It looks
It does.
very
It's fine.
fat and happy.
It needs to be saved. It is in a very rough situation. So anyway, so now there's been this great debate of the dog. So now you know kind of the background
So
story
you didn't
of the
answer
dog.
my question.
As much as I want a new dog, I know in my heart of hearts it's not a good idea. That's all you had? You just wanted to ask the dog question?
I mean, if I can get it on record that you also don't think we should get it, then I
Not
have
yet.
this.
You have this to go back to.
I have this to go back
that
to.
you'll never listen to. No.
I listen to every other show.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to listen to the one that my voice is on.
Yeah, I hear you. I just want to say also on record that I'm very grateful and excited that you did this and that you brought your own content, you brought your own quizzes. They were fun. They were exciting. Hopefully others will maybe take them. Before we get to our final episode number 1 in our final countdown, the last realistically 2 years, I have been using a service called Podmatch for a long time. It's a free version, by the way. I have found a number of guests over the last 6 years through Podmatch. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to reach out to the guy who runs it. His name's Alex. I can't say his last name, and I'm not even going to try. It's really hard. I was curious through Alex what he sees stat-wise the longevity of someone hitting 300 episodes is. The longevity of someone hitting 6 years is. And so I reached out to Alex and I said, hey, Alex, could you help provide some data on what that looks like? Because, I know there's some nerds out there that might be listening, like, statistically, Neil, where are you at? What's the show at? Where is it in the realm of? And so I thought, no better person to ask than Alex. He sees podcast data all day long. He's a podcast data nerd, I would say, affectionately said, of course. So Alex is going to give some stats.
Hello, my name is Alex Sanfilippo, and I'm a podcaster and the founder of Podmatch.com, which is a service that Neil often uses to connect with guests for his show. I'm recording this today just to say congratulations to Neil on the 6th anniversary of Other People's Shoes. Such a great accomplishment. Very few people know this, but because I'm in the podcasting space, I can share a stat like this. I looked it up as I was recording this, and only about 2% of people ever make it to 300 episodes or even beyond that. And Neil has already surpassed that and been at it for 6 years, which again is just an incredible thing in podcasting when you think that only 2% of people who get into it ever make it that far. I do want to talk about Other People's Shoes for just a moment here. This is always offered as a great reminder to me about the importance of empathy and thinking about life beyond just yourself, not just your life, but other people's as well. And in my life, it's a great reminder about the company that I run, Podmatch, as I just mentioned. It's a software company, and I think a lot of people think of software as being very disconnected from human life. This has been a great reminder to me to remember that my job is to love and to serve people before I do anything else from a software perspective. Think about people beyond just the number that they might be associated to within a company. And again, this show really reminds me of that. So again, Neil, congratulations on the 6th year anniversary of Other People's Shoes, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
See what I mean? Crazy. 2%? I can't even understand that. It just goes to show again that if you put your mind to something and really stick with it, amazing things can happen. I would love to say our final show just really encouraged you and really just pushed you forward. Sadly, the show that I picked didn't do that. In fact, it made me angry. It made me hurt. These are some of the feelings that I feel even now when I think back to the episode. Without further ado, our number 1 episode in our top 10 countdown is Not My Home.
1.
He came in the room and told me that the other officers are going to harm you. I've been holding them off. I can't do this anymore. You have to help yourself. Look, just tell them what they want to hear. You can go home afterwards. You're not going to be arrested. Being young, naive, frightened, 16 years old, not thinking about the long term, just being concerned with my safety in the moment. I was in fear of my life. The fact that I didn't know where I was and no one else did either loomed large in my mind. The push-pull dynamic, on one hand, the possible harm, on the other, this false life preserver that he threw me. I made the decision to make up a story based on the information they gave me that day and the 6 weeks run up to it. By the time it was all said and done, I had collapsed on the floor in a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. Obviously, I was arrested. That whole process was not videotaped. It was not audio taped. There's no signed confession. It's just the cop's word for it. That allowed the police to leave out the threat and false promise.
Took place in season 18, episode 1, our homecoming series. It led off my season. Awful story of how time after time after time after time, law enforcement failed him. An attorney failed him. A judge failed him. His family in some levels failed him. Everybody pretty much abandoned him. Again, if you want to go back and check out that episode, season 18, episode 1. That's it. That's our countdown. That is all. Next year, I will have some brand new shows to share, some new top 10s that made my list. So if a show didn't make the list, in your mind, what show was that? What show over the last, we'll say almost 2 years realistically, should have been in the top 10 in your mind? Do you have one? Let me know at opspodcast.com. It's a great place to let me know. You can let me know on my social medias at OPS Podcast Show under Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And that does include our birthday episode. And now for the big finale. Do you want to know? I'm happy to announce Other People's Shoes is going to get a sibling. It seems silly to call it a sibling. I am going to be starting a second show, and it's called Heel Hustle, and it'll only be on YouTube, and I bet you could probably guess what it's about. Like, just yell it out. Wherever you are, just yell it out. I don't hear anybody yelling, so I'll just answer it for you. It's going to be about the University of North Carolina. So it's going to be on YouTube. I'm going to try to post a video every Saturday. We'll see how that works. I have some shows lined up that I'm working on, but my show is going to have a sibling. I guess you could say. I don't know if I'll have 300 Heel Hustle episodes. Turn over to Heel Hustle on YouTube, and you can check that out every Saturday. If you're not even a Tar Heels fan, it's okay. You can come watch and see what's going on over there. If you are a Tar Heels fan, or you know someone that is a Tar Heels fan, maybe turn them on to the channel. So with all that said, with all that excitement, with all that fanfare, I just want to say I'm really happy that I've done this. I'm really encouraged that I've done this. I'm really just thrilled at the fact that I've been able to go at this and continue to be at this. And I just want to say I'm grateful for those that have listened. I'm grateful for those that have continued to support and share. And with all that aside, I just want to say again, one more time, thank you so much. Please don't ever forget. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned till next week when I walk in other people's shoes.